Hello, I'm Eamonn Mac Aodha, the Director for Parliament and Institutions at the Irish Permanent Representation to the European Union. And I'm delighted to welcome you to this, which is the 8th in a series of webinars that we're doing focusing on EU jobs and the opportunities that are available there. Today's webinar is going to focus on opportunities in the field of anti-fraud in the EU institutions. Previous webinars have focused on EU traineeships, on Irish women in the European Union institutions, on Irish language opportunities for lawyer linguists and proofreaders, on opportunities in the field of agriculture, health and food safety, on opportunities in interpretation and translation, and most recently, they've looked at possibilities in the field of data protection. Our webinars can be watched back at any time on the DFA YouTube account. Ireland's future prosperity is, of course, inextricably linked with our EU membership, and a strong understanding and connection with the European Union's institutions and agencies is essential to ensuring that Ireland can effectively engage with the European Union. With this in mind, the government recently launched a strategy aimed at increasing Ireland's staffing representation in the EU institutions and agencies. Along with several ambitious measures in the strategy, these webinars form an important part of our efforts to boost our representation. Last Thursday, the EU launched a series of competitions in the field of anti-fraud investigations and anti-corruption with a deadline of the 9th of November. And today's webinar will provide more information on the competitions and policy areas that are involved in this particular round. The Department of Foreign Affairs provides support to Irish citizens applying for jobs in the European Union at every step of the process, including online practice packs and one-to-one training depending on the competition stage. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you are applying for EU posts, and you can do that at eujobs@dfa.ie. The Department of Foreign Affairs EU Jobs website has also that practical advice for you if you're interested in an EU career, and I would encourage everyone to visit that site. Now, I want to welcome our speakers today. James SWEENEY is a head of unit in the European Anti-Fraud Office, known as Olaf. He will talk about his current role and career path in the field. Maria SERFIOTI joins us from the European Personnel Selection Office, and she will give us an overview of this specific competition. Thanks very much to our speakers for joining us today. We really appreciate their time. Our audience out there today will have a chance to ask their own questions, and you can do that through the Slido platform by going to the webpage sli.do and using the code #EUJobs to access the system. You don't have to register, anybody can do it. So that's sli.do. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you today. So let's get started. I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, James, to begin his presentation. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eamonn, and welcome to everybody. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon in Ireland already. As Eamonn said, my name is James SWEENEY. I'm a head of unit in Olaf, which is the European Anti-Fraud Office, and we are running these competitions in great partnership with the EPSO to recruit investigators at different levels of expertise to do and assist us in the important work that we do. And there's also a separate competition for forensic experts and analysts to assist us in this important work. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail on exactly what Olaf does, but I'll give you a bit of an overview so that people can understand what they're applying for and the excellent organization that you will join if you are successful in the competition. Olaf is a body, it's a commissioned service for the purposes of European Union anti-fraud policies, but it's also an independent investigation service to investigate any fraud or irregularities or any other breaches of European Union policies that have a detrimental effect on the EU budget or on the EU's reputation as an international organization. And I, for example, am Irish, as you will understand from my good Donegal accent. I still give my French teacher of the past grief when she hears my accent when I speak French, but that's for another day. I, like a lot of Irish people, just came to the Olaf, the European Commission, back in the 90s. I expected to stay 3 years, and now 30 years later, I'm still here. So that gives you an idea of how I found the service. I find working for the European Commission / Olaf an exciting job. It's an interesting job. It's a very important job. And as Eamonn has alluded to, it's very important that Irish people are part of doing that work, which is essentially defending the values of the European Union. They being of equality of treatment, of integrity, of democracy, of rule of law, and the role of Olaf in protecting the European budget, and the role of Olaf in working with member states and other international organizations in doing that work, protecting the European budget, for example, and the work that we will do in the post-pandemic phase of spending money in member states through the RRF, the Resilience and Recovery Fund, or protecting the European Union budget by way of customs duties and collecting customs duties and VAT that is to be contributed to the European budget. That's very important work. And now just to get into the type of people we're looking for, as you'll know from the official journals are very legally based and well-written documents for obvious reasons. But just to drill down a little bit below what's in the official journals, I mean, the type of people that we're looking for are people, obviously, my colleague Maria will go into a bit more detail later on the required experience that is necessary. But that experience is needed in 3 fields. One is those who have done investigations in expenditure relating to the EU budget, be they investigations from police or from people from the Department of Agriculture, for example, or the Department of Enterprise and Employment, or any of the other Irish government departments that have involved expenditure of an EU nature. If you feel that you qualify for that, and don't worry, our good colleagues in EPSO will always tell you whether you qualify in due course or not, please do not hesitate to apply. The European Commission needs Irish people. And I say that as an Irishman. Secondly, those who are in the customs field, or those who are in the VAT field, the TVA, value added tax, as we say in Ireland. If you have done investigation work of this type, and you already have the experiences specified in the official journals, do not hesitate to apply. When you come to Olaf, those that are successful, you join a family, basically, because we're almost have a vocation for the type of work that we will do, because we think it's very important work. There's a huge contribution to be made by Olaf. You go through very good training, introductory system. We have a buddy system to train people and help them do the work. And the work itself, on the structural funds and agriculture expenditure, or any of the other direct expenditure that the EU does to member states, it takes you across the whole of the 27 member states and beyond. I mean, you do work, you travel, you have a lot of work on the spot in the member states, mostly in partnership with those member states, but sometimes as Olaf acting independently. Similarly, on the customs side, literally, if you join the customs team, where I am now the head of unit, you can literally travel all over the world in the course of your work, from China to the US and back again. And that because of the nature of customs duties, as customs experts who are on the line will know far better than I, it's one of the a good source of income for the European Union budget. So that type of work, as I said, it's very interesting. It's challenging, but it's interesting. And as I said, in terms of career path, which is again Eamonn mentioned at the outset, I joined back in the I came over to Brussels on what they call the National Expert Scheme, which some of you might be familiar with. I stayed for 3 years. Then I did a competition and I got it. I started off as an AD7 and I've worked my way through the system. For the benefit of those that might know and want to go and check salaries, I'm now an AD14. So there is a career path, though, for those, an excellent career path for those that want to, that are prepared to work hard and show your interest in your work. And I mean, I have to say, over the course of my career and looking at the Irish in action over the years, I'm really proud of the contribution that Irish people have made to the European Commission and to the other institutions of the EU. So if you really want to join people that have been shown to be successful and really make a contribution to the values and the standards and the hard work that the European Union does, please do not hesitate to apply. And last but not least, because I know my good colleague Maria wants to go into a bit more detail on the specific requirements for these competitions, I'll be the good Irishman now and give you a bit of advice. If you are applying, I'll give you a bit of advice now as to what you should look at and what you should study. First of all, a couple of the obvious things. Olaf has an excellent website. Anyone Google it, you'll find us. We're there beside the frozen Olaf, but we're also there as the European Anti-Fraud Office. That goes into quite a lot of detail of what we do. Secondly, on both the expenditure, on the revenue, and indeed on the forensic experts that we're looking for as well. An analyst, sorry, I should have said that fourth thing. Secondly, look on that website and look at the last 3 or 4 Olaf annual reports. They're very well written, because I've written some of them, parts of it at least. And they give excellent examples of the type of work Olaf does, where it's done in all of the parts of the world that it's done. And it's for those that are really interested in a good, exciting career, that gives a good window into what we do, emphasizing that we always work in partnership with the member states, with the other commission services and other international organizations like Europol. Now the European Public Prosecutor's Office is on the control landscape and investigation landscape, again, all done in partnership. Now, drilling down a little bit further, look at the following regulations. And there's only 2. Don't worry, I'm not going to give you too much homework. The overall legal framework of Olaf was last updated by Regulation 883 of 2013. That's Council Regulation 883 of 2013. Look at that. There's a lot in there. That will give you a very good idea of what Olaf does. And then in terms of the actual work that investigators do, either on the customs side or on the expenditure side, there's a regulation that's been around since the middle of 1990s, Regulation 2185 of 96. That gives the detailed rules, basically gives you the methodology and the modus operandi that Olaf uses in its investigation work. Those, I mean, I obviously cannot tell you what will be in the competition, but there'll be something from in those details. There'll be something in there that's related to the work. The standard thing is you're given a case or whatever. How would you approach it? If you know those things, you have a good basis of understanding of what you need to do. And last but not least, read the official journal. Really look at what they're looking for. Because strictly speaking, and of course, in the privacy of this open forum, we can only ever ask you questions related to what's in that official journal. So bear that in mind. So listen, I hope that's a little bit helpful. I'd gladly take any questions you can have about life in Belgium, Brussels, anything afterwards, or anything very specifically related to my work. I've done both. As I said, I've been a head of unit on structural funds and agriculture for 5 years. This last 3 years, I've been doing customs work and VAT work. So I have a fairly good overview of what's involved. And I'll now, with that, I hope that's okay. And I'll gladly hand over to Maria. Thank you.
Thanks very much, James. You really did exactly what I was hoping you would do. Which is, in a sense, situate these opportunities, first of all, in the big picture, which is, this type of work is very much linked to, I suppose, the maintenance of the credibility of the European Union. And without that credibility, citizens, become disaffected, and that's clearly not a good thing. So it has a very high level angle to it. And that links to another thread that struck me in what you were talking about there, which is the vocational nature of the work. That was the second thing that kind of jumped out at me. It's actually perhaps not a term often used when we talk about EU careers, and it was very good to hear it in this context. A third piece that jumped up at me, and which we of course very much appreciate and understand, is the need for Irish people to be in the system and to be visible in the system. What that does to giving, again, credibility, to making the union reflective of all the member states, really important. And then specifically on the roles, I mean, I was struck by possibilities for induction, possibilities for buddy systems, the easing of the path once you're in to doing the job on a day-to-day basis. And of course, then the other piece that struck me was the opportunities for travel. It's not just about being a desk-based, quite the opposite. You're out and about doing things, not just in the institutions, but further afield and across the globe. Look, the advice was really practical, James. I think people would have very much appreciated it. And I would point out to our audience out there that you're from a part of the country which is known for the niceness of its people, but also their canniness. So I hope people were listening well towards the end of your presentation, because I think there were some good nuggets in there as well. Maria, let's talk about the competition nuts and bolts now. Over to you.
Hello, thank you so much, Eamonn and James. That was a great start, actually, and I enjoyed how James introduced how important it is, the job, and the tips. Great advice about the official journal, and we call it notice of the competition. So I will talk about that as well. Just give me a second. I need to share my screen and give because it's a bit of a let's say long official journal, so the notice of the competition. So I'll try to put together as much as possible the most important parts. This competition is, well, actually there are two competitions. So you see the numbers of them, the official numbers on the screen. These are the numbers of the official journal, the notice of the competition, as we say. And these two competitions have 4 and 2 specific fields, as also James mentioned earlier. One is in the EU expenditure and customs, and the other one is in digital forensics and operational analysis. Now, so the purpose of the competition is to create reserve lists, right? So successful candidates who have the following expertise. So we're looking for anti-fraud investigators and experts in the field of EU expenditure and anti-corruption. And that would be in the grades of 87, 89. I will explain what that means on my next slide. This is mainly about the salary and the experience needed in order to be eligible for this specific profile. We also are looking for anti-fraud investigators and experts in the field of customs and trade, tobacco and counterfeit goods, also in 87 and 89 grades. We're also looking for administrators, as I said, in the field of digital forensics and in the field of operational and strategic analysis. And these two are for 87 grade. The numbers you see in the beginning of the slide of its profile, it's the numbers of the successful candidates that we are looking for. So what do we offer in order to get you to come to Brussels and work for Olaf and live beautiful Ireland or wherever you may be in the world? And on top of what James already mentioned about how important it is to work for the EU and the great job that Olaf does, another good reason is a competitive salary. And as I said about the different grades, so when we are referring to an 89 grade, the base salary is around 8,000 euros. And when we're referring to 87 grade, the base salary is around 6,000 euros. Now, the final amount that you would get, that depends on several factors, and that is allowances that you might boost your income. and depends if you're an expat, if you have a spouse or children. And we're talking about household allowances, dependent child allowances, expatriation allowance, etc. EU officials, it's worth noting that they do some social security contributions like pension and health and accident insurance, education allowances in case you have children, and other deductions. We do not pay national tax, so that means that you don't have to pay any tax in your salary in your country and the origin or the country of your origin or the country of your residence. However, there is an EU income tax that depends on the size of the salary. It is worth adding here that we cover healthcare costs that are reimbursed by the joint EU sickness insurance scheme for the employee, it's himself or herself, and as well as the direct family members and dependents. It is important to say that in case you do succeed in the competition, then the EU covers the travel costs on taking up the duties, as well as daily subsistence allowance and installation allowances, as well as all the removal costs that you need to move to Brussels. Now, let's go a bit into detail about what is actually these profiles about, what will be the tasks. James already mentioned some of them, but I'm just going to go very quickly. So for the anti-fraud investigators on AD7 grade, the main task will include carrying out investigations in the field of EU expenditure, revenue, anti-corruption, and serious wrongdoings of the EU staff. And the anti-fraud experts on grade 89 will have a high degree of specialization and will conduct and provide high-level expert support for investigations and operations concerning expenditure, revenue, and anti-corruption. For the anti-fraud investigators in the field of customs and trade, tobacco, and counterfeit goods, 87 grade, the main task will include carrying out investigation in that specific field. And for those who will be experts, and they will have the grade of 89, the main task will be to conduct and provide expert support for investigations and operation in that field. For those that will be working in digital forensic, some of the main tasks will be to prepare digital forensic operations, working together with the case investigators, inspect and identify digital media, collect relevant digital media, and acquire data by creating digital forensic images. Use the digital forensic images to search for and identify the most relevant data on the case that is under the investigation and perform basic analysis of that data. If you recruited in the profile of the administrator for operational or strategic analysis, the tasks depend on which field you will exactly be working, but some idea can be and the following tasks to provide prompt and timely operational analysis for Olaf investigations in the areas of EU revenue and expenditure, as well as search, extract, and analyze data and information from the European Commission, commercial databases, and other open sources. You'll also be carrying out a qualitative and quantitative strategic analysis to advance evidence-based anti-fraud policy and prevention. Now, the general conditions, so these general conditions apply to both competitions and all profiles, and that is that you need to be have full rights as a member, as a citizen of an EU member state. You also must have met any obligation under the national law about military service. And lastly, must meet the character requirements of being an EU official. This is a bit of a standard requirement, and it's about appropriate behavior and ethical standards. Now, these now are the specific conditions that apply to each field profile, let's say. So in order to be eligible for the profile of anti-fraud investigators in the field of EU expenditure and anti-corruption, you need to have a university diploma after following 4 years of studies, followed by at least 6 years of professional experience as investigator, police or customs officer, or other professional investigating fraud or irregularities affecting the national and or EU financial interests. You could also, you would also be eligible if you have a university diploma after following 3 years of studies, but in that case, you would need to have 7 years of professional experience in the same domain. For those that wish to apply as an expert, so that means in a higher grade, AD9, the requirements are to have a university diploma after following 4 years of studies, followed by at least 10 years of professional experience in the fields of activity carrying out investigations concerning fraud and irregularities detrimental to nationals or EU financial interests. Or you would also be eligible if you have a university diploma of 3 years, followed though by 11 years at least of professional experience in the same field. Now, what is important here is that for these 10 or 11 years, 3 of them must comprise of a professional experience in managing complex investigations. Also, for both profiles, the investigator of 87 and the expert of 89, in this field of EU expenditure and anti-corruption, as a candidate, you must have acquired your experience as we said, as an investigator, police officer, or other professional in a law enforcement agency or body, in a judiciary, sorry, I pronounced that wrongly, or public administration of a member state, in an EU institution, could be an agency or a body, or within an investigative part of an intergovernmental organization or a multinational corporation. So all these possibilities are eligible for these profiles. Now, in order to be eligible for the profile of an anti-fraud investigator in the field of customs and trade, tobacco and counterfeit goods, as a candidate, you must have a university diploma of at least 4 years of studies, followed by at least 6 years of professional experience as an investigator, police or custom officer, or other professional investigative fraud or irregularities regarding national or EU financial interests. You would also be eligible if you have completed university studies at least 3 years, but you have which have been followed by at least 7 years of professional experience. For the profile of the anti-fraud expert, that means 89, in the field of customs, you would need to be eligible, you would need to have a university diploma of 4 years at least, followed by at least 10 years of professional experience. Or you would also be eligible if you have a university diploma after 3 years of studies, but that would need at least 11 years of professional experience in that field. Also here, very important, from these 10 or 11 regarding, depending on how many years of studies you had, this experience needs to be at least 3 years of managing complex investigations. Now, to be eligible as administrator in the field of digital forensic, you must have a university diploma of at least 4 years of studies, followed by 6 years of at least 6 years of professional experience as a digital forensic examiner. Or you could have a university diploma after following 3 years of studies, followed by at least 3 years of professional experience. You would also be eligible if you have professional training at level 7 of AQF, plus at least 6 years of professional experience as digital forensics examiner. Or you would also be eligible if you have professional training of level 6 of EQF, plus at least 7 years of professional experience. You would also need to have proven experience with a wide range of forensic methods, and plus proven practical experience with forensic tools. In order to be eligible as an administrator in the field of operation and strategic analysis, you must have a university diploma of at least 4 years, followed by at least 6 years of professional experience as an analyst, supporting investigations, targeting corruption and/or financial crime. You would also be eligible if you have a university diploma of at least 3 years of studies, followed by at least 7 years of professional experience. You would also be eligible if you have professional training of level 7 EQF and at least 6 years of professional experience, or if you have professional training of level 6 EQF, followed by at least 7 years of professional experience. And on top of that, you need to have proven experience of specific data analysis tools, which are listed also in detail in the notice of the competition, and proven practical experience in a wide range of analytical techniques. Also in detail, you would find all the information in the official document. Now, how can you apply? So if this all sounds interesting to you and you think it's a great opportunity to join us, you would need to go to our website and create an account. And if you already have an account, then you don't need to create a new one, because each person only is allowed to have one profile. So you have your profile at the EPSO, and you do your application, which you can do in one of the 24 official EU languages. And when you do your application, you will need to select language number 1 and language number 2 for the test. And I will explain a bit of that in the next slide. In the application, you would also need to confirm your eligibility. That's a declaration of honor, and you would need to provide further information relevant to the competition, such as your diplomas, your work experience, and to answer the field-related questions, and that is the talent screener. Now, the talent screener is quite important because that will need to be done in English or French, and that will be, and via the talent screener, you will be assessed. And it is eliminatory stage in order to go to the next level. Now, although the talent screener is part of the application, you have to be very careful when you apply, because it will be assessed differently. So the selection board will assess the talent screener separately from the rest of the application. What that means is that if you would need to repeat information in the talent screener that there might be somewhere else in the application. And this is very, very important information. And all the candidates that apply for the same field, they will have the same questions from which the selection board will assess everyone, and you would need to have the highest total marks in order to go to the next level. Now, the next stage is the computer-based reasoning tests, which are verbal, numerical, or abstract, and that takes place in language number 1. They could be they could take place in an accredited EPSO center, but they could also be done remotely. And you will know about that when you apply. You will receive information if you are in this level. Don't forget to check your account regularly once you have applied. This is also an eliminatory test, so you need to obtain at least the pass marks in order to proceed to the next stage. If you have obtained at least the pass marks then from the computer-based tests, then you will be invited to sit at 3 tests that will be in language number 2. And in those tests, you will be assessed in 8 general competencies, which you can find in the notice of the competition, the official journal that we discussed, the big document that it's difficult to read. You would also be assessed in field-related competencies. That will be done in different ways. So the 8 general competencies, you will be tested via case study and a competency-based interview, while for the field-related competencies, you will be tested via with an interview. So the selection board, after checking all the supporting documents against the information you have provided, will draw up a reserve list for each field that we discussed, so the 6 in total, and for each grade of those eligible candidates who have obtained the highest marks, as well as the pass marks, until the number of successful candidates needed is reached. So the numbers we had on the first slide. Now, the languages, this is very, very important. So when you apply, the application, as I said, could be done in any of the 24 official languages. But now it gets a bit more complicated, because for this specific competition, there are 2 languages needed. And one needs to be at minimum C1 level, and the second one, it has to be English or French, because that's the working languages of Olaf. It needs to be at minimum B2 level. So application is done in language number 1, so 1 of the 24. The talent screener, which is part of the application, is done in language number 2, which must be English or French. The computer-based reasoning tests are done in language number 1, 1 of the 24, the same you have done the application. And then the case study, the competency-based interview, and the field-related interview will be done in language number 2, English or French. So what does it mean? If you apply in Irish, then your language number 2, where you will do the talent screener as well as the case study, the interview, and the field-related interview, that would need to be in English or French. If you apply in English, then the language number 2 must be French, because the number 1 and the number 2 languages cannot be the same. So pay extra attention for that. And then how you can find all the information. So these are the links, and that will be shared with you after the webinar, so you will get all this information. So these are the links that takes you straight to the landing page of each of the 2 competitions. And there you can find the notice of the competition, which comes from the official journal, which is the most important document. Is not very user-friendly, we admit, but you need to read it cover to cover. It has all the information about the competition, the processes, the languages that are going to be used in Olaf, the tasks in detail. And as James already mentioned, this is the base where you will have the interviews and the questions that they can ask you for. So it's really, really important to read it very, very carefully. You would also find links that will take you to the anchors to assess competencies. So you will have all the lists with the competencies and how they will, possible questions about how they will assess them. And you would also have sample tests. Now, don't forget, deadline, 9th of November. Don't leave it too late. Do your application a bit in advance. Save it as draft, revisit it, rethink it a bit, and go back to it. And also I'm including a link with the benefits and rules for the EU officials. Oh, sorry, took me out of my, apologies. And this is important because you will have all the information about the salary, the allowances, parental leaves, and all the benefits and obligations that we have as EU officials. If you have a question on your application, your tests, or your selection procedures, so at any level after your application, you can contact us via this link. It is also on the website, so you will find it easily, and we will get back to you within 3 days. That's the end of my presentation. I know I have bombarded you with so much information. I'm really sorry about that. But I'm here to reply to any question that you may have. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much indeed. It is a relatively complex process, but it is not by any means impossible. I think that's the basic message here. And I know EPSO, and we are in dialogue, as many other member states are, continues to reflect on how to simplify it. But, you know, we're talking here about a recruitment competition for important roles. So there has to be a certain amount of complexity involved. But I think Maria has done a wonderful job in terms of setting it out as clearly as possible for us. Thank you very much for that. I think we've had a real nuts and bolts sense of what the competition will look like and what successful candidates need to do. I'm going to now maybe move into the Q&A mode. We did promise people an opportunity via Slido, and that's sli.do, and the way to enter the code is EU jobs. We already have a number of people who've already done that and have asked their questions on Slido. So I'm going to start with those questions. It's not always completely clear who should answer, James and Maria. So hop in if I don't call you immediately and you think that you might have a perspective. Please feel free to share it. Let me just begin with a question. What sort of career development prospects would be available to those applying for the forensics analyst role? You know, what is the career path in that sphere? I don't know, James or Maria, which you wants to maybe jump in on that?
Can you hear me, Eamonn? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, people who are in the forensic or the analytical world know how valuable they are. They're a sought after group of people. Secondly, of course, Olaf wants to get the best, and I'm sure some of them are in Ireland. And we would like to think that when you do join Olaf, you'll be so happy here that you will want to stay. But to answer the question more specifically, being a forensic or indeed an analyst in general in the European Commission services or indeed across the institutions is a great talent. And it allows you to move into other fora, into other types of work if you so desire, if you want to broaden out. So the career path straight then, as I said, from the entry grade right through the career up to head of unit or director level and beyond. There are great opportunities across the services. There are great opportunities even in Olaf. And if you take the totality of the package that Maria mentioned, I mean, it really is a very attractive package by today's standards. And for the benefit of people in Ireland, the 6,000 and 8,000 is per month. It's not per week, but it's not any longer than a month. So just to be aware of that as well. There are regular competitions then that people, once they're in the institutions, that can apply for to advance their career path. And even if you never did a competition, there is a standard incremental system of advancement within the Commission services, quite similar in many respects to how it operates in Ireland. But it's almost, it's of a more automatic nature over time as well. So I hope I've answered that question reasonably well. I don't want to give away the Olaf people so recruited to anybody else before they're recruited. But if once you're in the system, there's a lot of possibilities. Let me leave it at that. Maria, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
That's great, James. I would just add that about the possibilities of promotion. As your impressive career, you said you started from 87, so progressively officials have the possibility to increase the grade. So you're starting from 87. We talk about promotions depending on your assessment and your performance, and that could increase every few years depending on the available posts and Olaf, how it is inside Olaf, that I don't know about. But so there is the possibility to increase your salary, okay, so and increase your grade, as James had over the years, and everyone can apply. As long as you have the grade, you can apply for a head of unit, and from a head of unit to a director, and etc. So the career development is quite attractive, I would say. And not forget, as already mentioned, the vocational, so you can also always increase your competencies, and that is something that is continuous throughout your career at Olaf and in the institutions in general, as having a new career.
Thank you very much, Maria and James. Great answers to that. I think we've covered it well. I'm going to move to another question, which asks about the talent screener. And it says the talent screener questions are very specific. For example, do you have investigative experience relating to protecting the EU's financial interests and/or wrongdoings by EU staff, etc. This potential candidate says, I have investigative experience, but not in those areas. Please advise.
I will just start. I don't know if James has something to say about that. I will say, as James mentioned in the beginning, you should apply. Let's start with that. So even if it's not, because the notice of the competition just gives it an indication in a way, and it's up to the selection board. It's not up to me to say you are eligible or not. And so I would propose you apply. And we leave it to the selection board, which are experts, and they know, and they will judge if that is acceptable for the specific jobs or not. That's from my side, but maybe James from the inside of Olaf has more information.
No, I mean, no, Maria, you've covered it. I mean, it's really, that will be decided almost on a case-by-case basis. And if you meet the eligibility requirements, and then if you meet the detailed requirements, there's no reason why people don't advance. That's my answer to that. Yeah.
Thanks very much, both of you, on that one. I have another question here, but I think the answer to it is clear enough in a way. Maria, maybe you to come in on it, but I think you've set out in some detail what the eligibility criteria are. But somebody's asking, are these positions open to recent university graduates, or are you looking for more experienced candidates? And I think the short answer is you are looking for people who've had practical work experience to date, unless there's anything further you want to add on that.
Yes, exactly. So you saw we're looking at the minimum of 6 years of professional experience. That's the minimum. We're talking about the 87 grade, and that's minimum 6 years.
Yeah, thanks very much, Maria. Another question then, based on past experience, what is your expectation on the number of applications? It appears to me, this particular questioner says, that the talent screener with 7 customs will be used before the MCQ. Is that because you expect a low number of applicants?
Well, that's a good question, but we don't have the answer. This is a quite niche competition, right? We are looking for really specific people from 27 member states. So it's very difficult to predict. I mean, I'm not in the market. Let's say I don't know how many professionals are with this kind of niche profile and that much of experience. So it's very difficult to say. But this is done in cooperation with Olaf. This, the competition is organized in cooperation with Olaf and EPSO, and Olaf has a better knowledge of what they expect and how they want this to go. So maybe indeed Olaf, they expect a lot of professionals to apply, but we don't know.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just add to that briefly, I mean, thanks, Maria. I mean, yeah, I mean, we would be obviously very interested in those people who have already acquired the experience that is set down. We're particularly interested in people who may be in the police services or in tax investigations or expenditure investigations, be it maybe I should have clarified, be it of a national or EU-based level. And as regards to, I see one or two questions about languages. Bear in mind that Irish, we're always probably maybe slightly behind the curve on languages, but there's two things to bear in mind here. Irish is an official language of the EU. And those that meet the standard, and there's probably a lot of you out there, probably more of you than you think, can use that to your advantage. And indeed, with the way the European Union has gone and the excellent integration and movement of people in and out of Ireland, which we all applaud, there's probably far more people in the middle ranks of the civil service now that have 2 or 3 languages. So it shouldn't become so much of a barrier. You all will speak what we claim to be excellent Irish English. The Irish being the best writers in the world, of course. And for the rest of it, if you don't try, we won't know that you're there. Of course, and I reiterate, read closely the official journal. Maria she's slightly apologetic about it, but she shouldn't be, because it's a legal-based document which governs all competitions to ensure transparency and fairness and equality of treatment across the EU. But anything that you really need to know is in there, and she's very helpfully provided contact addresses for any other doubts that you might have. So don't let any of the immediate potential constraints that jump to your mind put you off. If you don't buy the ticket, you certainly won't win the lotto. So that's my advice. Yeah.
Thanks, James. No, I think very, very sage advice indeed. I'm going to take 2 more questions because the clock is against us. And the first one is, I think these are both really for you, Maria. Are AD6 positions also advertised in the same manner?
Oh, interesting. What do we mean by the same manner? They need also a professional experience. I think it's for 3 years for AD6, so a bit less. The only grades we have without professional experience are AD5. So anything above that has professional experience as a requirement. And regarding the procedure is always notice of a competition, and there is screenings and tests, but each competition is different now. They're not there's not a standard way because that depends of the profiles, depending of how many laureates we're looking for. So the procedure is not the same for each competition. It depends on the specific profile, and that's why it's important to read the notes of the competition. And we say it again, and I'm apologizing because I know how difficult it is to read it. It's long, but indeed it's all the information you need, and it will guide you also to prepare your application and what you need to put in. So that's why you need to read very carefully, because it's not the same. If you applied for another one, it doesn't match. So each one it's unique, it's different. So I hope I covered the question.
No, I think you covered that. And I have one more question, which I think is maybe an appropriate one to draw the Q&A part of today's webinar to an end. And that is, from start to finish, how long does a competition like this normally take? And I know this is an issue EPSO looks at.
That's an EPSO issue, yes. We are doing our best to speed up. We have been facing a lot of issues also with COVID, and our competitions have been a bit even slower. We are very sorry about that. We are doing our best, and now there are possibilities for remote testing. So in case of constraints with COVID or otherwise, so things hopefully will start moving faster. So, but it's worth the wait. I'll say that. My competition, when I did it, took me 2 years to from applying to being recruited. It's worth the wait. Let's say that, and they should apply even if it's not maybe something very quick, but it's a good opportunity to succeed, and then in 2 years, and hopefully not in years, but it's in long term, it will be there, and it will be a great opportunity, and will worth the time and you have spent on preparing it and sitting to tests, and yeah, we're doing our best to do faster. I hope we will deliver.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add to that, and apart from, yes, that very obvious point that it is worth the wait, it is also worth saying that specialist competitions like this, I know EPSO has been managing to knock some time off the length of time that it takes, and hopefully that's something we'll see more of, and that may also work through in the context of this competition. And perhaps on the Q&A front, I'll draw to a close with that, and maybe also finish our proceedings today. But before I do that, I want to thank our speakers. A sincere thanks to you, James Sweeney, for outlining the key policy areas in the field, and for sharing your career experience, but also your I think very canny insights into the process. Maria SERFIOTI, thank you for taking the time to present the details of the competitions. I found this a very interesting experience, and I hope our viewers have too. I hope it will be useful for them. I hope also that the webinar has offered encouragement to all of you who've joined us online. And I want to thank you for taking an interest in this event. Again, to stress, the Department of Foreign Affairs is willing and able to assist people who apply for EU jobs. There is support available from us, as I mentioned at the outset. Again, please get in contact with eujobs@dfa.ie if you are applying for EU jobs and if you feel we can help you. If you want to rewatch some of this webinar or share it with someone you know, please do so. It's available at the DFA YouTube account and will be up shortly. You can also follow us on Twitter at EU Jobs Ireland to keep up to date with all our upcoming events and various traineeships and job opportunities in the European Union. Before closing out, I want to thank my own team today, Maria Stemitivo and Mike Williams, for assisting in putting together our webinar. So thank you for joining us, and good luck with your applications. Bye-bye.